Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Tara. We talk about TV shows here. The year is 2022 and the name of the show is Babylon 5. This is season 5, episode 4. It is called A View from the Gallery. So full spoilers for the episode as always. And this is very much the Zeppo episode of Babylon 5. Which I'm saying Zeppo because that's the episode of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer that does a similar thing. Not with like a complete unknown character, Xander, but it's kind of like, oh, there's all this apocalyptic stuff going on around, but we're going to follow Xander and his little silly adventure separate. Okay, I'm done. We can move on with the Buffy reference, it's fine. But I also joked to Tara this is Babylon 5 Lower Decks, just because, Star Trek comparison. Why not?
This is clearly the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead.
I mean, that's what all of these things are ultimately based on, right? Yeah. That's the original version of this, which is you take two unknown characters who, in this case, are just maintenance workers on the station, and we're going to follow them whilst all this other crazy stuff's going on around the station. And they'll bump into our main characters, and we'll see them from time to time. But we're following these two nobodies, basically. But that's kind of the charm. And it can work effectively in the right hands. So I guess I'll ask the question, did you enjoy Babylon's 5 taking the concept?
I did. I actually think this is probably the best version of this type of gimmicky episode, which they've done like similar ones before where we get the newscasters or even the finale of last season. I think you can count as that. But I think this one has worked the best so far. It felt the most natural. Yeah, I
wouldn't say it's the same gimmick, but I'd say, they're all gimmick episodes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Of the gimmick episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I actually quite like this a lot, actually. I thought it was a nice slice of life thing that I thought the two characters and the actors were entertaining for, their parts that they were playing. There's a couple of cheesy moments, but
them fangirling about Delen's smile was a bit much.
Cheesy, yeah. But I like their interactions, their take on like some of the bigger stuff going on. And it was like, okay, how does the common man react to some of this larger than life stuff that we see all the time on the show? That was kind of neat. And I actually recognized one of the actors, the smaller white guy. I've seen him many a time, not in many things, but I've seen the movies in a lot. He is in the opening part of Halloween 4.
Okay. I thought maybe you were going to pull from like a police academy or something.
Oh, no. I mean, it's possible that I might have seen him pop up elsewhere as well, but he's the security guard that lets the doctors in who are taking Michael Myers from the hospital at the start of Halloween 4. So he delivers all this. He delivers all this exposition about like who Michael Myers is, and it's like a recap for the audience, but he's explaining it to the two doctors like, yeah, this guy killed his sister, and then 12 years later he came back on Halloween night and killed all these other people. And so I was like, because it took me a second, I was like, oh, I know this guy. What is this guy in? And I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's a 90s TV show because it's the time period. I'm like, oh no, it's Halloween 4. That's who this guy is.
Do you think they got him for Halloween 4 because he's so short to make the shape look even more intimidating?
I love that theory, but you never see him standing up next to him. So
okay.
Yeah, he actually survives because he stays back at where Michael came from, because Michael doesn't get up until the ambulance on the way to wherever he's going. So that's the infamous thumb in the head kill in the ambulance. So yeah, this guy's from Halloween 4. I popped a little bit. I was like, yeah, I like seeing this guy.
Two of my worlds colliding.
But yeah, no, I thought they were both good. I like how they run into all the main characters, including the newer characters. We see them both with I almost said Kat there because that's who she is on Lois and Clark. With what's her name on the show? Lockley. Run into Lockley a couple of times. They run into Byron, so we get their sort of impression of the telepath.
Who's still quoting Hamlet.
yeah. But we get to see, like, all these things reveal all of these characters' like current positions on the show and what they're doing through these little interactions. So it was a neat way of like sort of like, okay, this is where everyone is, this is what everyone's doing, what the roles are this season, and yeah, so I liked it.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I thought it was a neat little gimmick. I like that we got to see basically everyone. I don't think we see Lita, but that's it.
No.
That's typical. No Lita.
Yeah, and I also appreciate them cracking some jokes. They even bring up Cole at one point. I almost laughed because they were like, oh, what was that guy's name? And I was like, say Cole, don't say Marcus, say Cole. But they said Marcus, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. You weren't on a first name basis with them.
Yeah, the rumors about Ivanova.
Yeah. You know why she left. You know, whatever.
She got another job somewhere.
I love how
that's a little meta.
They mentioned a pilot at one point, and it's not anyone we actually know, but I did sort of laugh, say, oh, is that kind of like representing Pucci? Like they're talking about one of the hotshot pilots. Obviously it's not him because he's long dead, but you know, that's like a representation of like someone like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of neat. Plus they're sort of used as vessels to answer a lot of fan questions. I feel like.
And even like I've never heard this obviously because I wasn't talking about the show when it came out. But at one point when the short guy, who I think is Mac or Mick,
Mac and Bo
were the names, so Mac says the White Stars look like plucked chickens. I have to assume that was a fan comment that they put in here as a joke.
Yeah, I never really made the connection, but after they said that, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of true.
Because I always heard that about Serenity and Fireflies. People always said that looked a bit like a chicken. With its feet out and it's landing. And I kind of see it in that a bit more.
Okay. Yeah, I can picture it. It's been a while since I've watched it.
Yeah. But it made me think of that a little bit. But there was that. Okay, so we can sort of talk about each of these. Before we talk about the larger scope of the episode, we can talk about some of the individual like interactions because they're all kind of on their own and kind of standalone. I really liked the Franklin one. Yeah,
definitely.
They
were standout.
I think there's a good one to get with him at the end, but like the story he tells about how he wanted to become a doctor, like what the moment they made him want to be a doctor. I actually thought, I mean, there's a little bit of cheesiness to like how he stopped and gives this monologue to like the maintenance guy. He just sort of chimed in a little bit, but once you get past that, like this story about how his father was captured by the enemy and he assumed he was dead, but then it turned out he was alive and had been kept alive all this time by the doctor on the opposing side. And that's what made him want to become a doctor, was like the idea that there's this sort of like moral code that you could respect in that, like no matter what, like that's what you're there to do. It doesn't matter that there's the other side. And he sort of uses this to like sort of like, because the you know, like Bo's kind of like, why
bother trying to save them?
Why help the enemy that's coming? Yeah. I thought that was a really good little speech, and I was like, you know what, that was a good little bit of character lore and I love the idea that JMS had this written down somewhere and he just never had an episode to put it in, and then here's an opportunity, put it in here.
No, I agree. I like this one a lot. I actually rewound it because I thought I should really focus on this. Make sure I understand what's happening here. And it's nice to have good Franklin moments because I don't feel like Franklin is, you know, on the tier of characters, he's been fine for the most part, but you know, he's had his ups and downs, and unfortunately he's had some major downs, but I don't find myself caring about him as much as I do the others. So it's nice to give us something to be like, oh yeah, I do like Franklin. He's got an interesting backstory. He's got great motivations, you know, where he's not luring women back to his pad.
Yeah, I still maintain that was less like that wasn't really supposed to be like this is a character flaw. It was just like what would you say? They didn't read the room when they wrote that, rather than it was meant to be an intentional thing that was problematic with him. You know,
look, it's written by nerds who don't talk to women. I get
it. Because I also like the final little beat of it as well, where he asks, "Oh, what happened to your dad? Or what happened to the doctor who helped your dad?" And he's like, "Oh, they killed him they called him a traitor." And it's this idea that, like, obviously, we know our side wouldn't do that to Franklin because they do kind of like, you know, agree with them that he should help everyone, but this idea that even with that, he still wanted to do this, like, you know, so he and you know, his dad is disappointed in some ways that he didn't become a military man like him and like his grandfather and that. But
yeah, we saw that right in season 1 or something.
When we met him, back in like season. Yeah, it could have been 1, 2, or 3. Yeah, it could have been any of those seasons, honestly. But I remember the episode. But I do kind of like this idea that in some way he does believe in his ideals so much that he is willing to do this if it meant risking getting killed by his own side if it ever came to that kind of thing.
Well, it's also meant to like give Bo the realization that like that's kind of where he was headed in the beginning of the conversation, where he's like, I'm kind of on the side of let them die, and maybe, you know, that's the more extreme end of that, where you would see the doctor as a traitor. Yeah.
And yeah, so it's nice because it gives like, and clearly the conversation, and you know, Bo gets it and he's like, oh, he kind of understands the empathy of it and sort of like changes his tune a little by the end, and it's like, okay, all right. So I like that. It was a sweet little moment. Meanwhile, because we get introduced to them together first, and they're just sort of talking about like what they do, and like, oh, it's time to go for lunch. They have some jokes about the Centauri like sandwich filling that sucks, but the Centauri love it.
The spoo.
The spoo, yes.
Fresh spoo. It looks like tofu. Like someone just took a block of tofu and put it between two slices of bread. Yeah, I was going to say it looks Soylent White, but yeah, I guess that is tofu in a lot of ways. You gotta cook it. You can't just have bland tofu. It doesn't taste like anything.
Of course, but like a fool, Bo agrees to swap his hot, was it salami, I think he had?
Yeah.
Sounded better, anyway. Whatever it was.
I had a tofu sandwich for lunch today. It was delicious. But, I put soy sauce and garlic powder and stuck it in the air fryer.
Yeah, you put some flavor into it, yeah. So when he's done that, because he's on his own, Mac is on the command deck because the defense grid is not working. Which, by the way, a lot of Bridge Boy this episode. I love that whenever we get... it's only been 2 episodes so far, but whenever we get Lockley, we get Bridge Boy, because Bridge Boy, as we said in the first episode, has been given
assigned to her.
Yes, Ivanova has passed him off to Lockley to be Bridge Boy for her. So there's a lot of him here. But Mac's fixing the defense grid, and so they're having this big battle with one of the scout ships from this like enemy. And the whole time he's like got this, and I kind of loved how stupid this was. He's got this like really generic like workman dialogue where he's like, "Oh, there's your problem," as they're like, duck, send out the fighters. And it was like an alien cockroach or something that was in the wiring.
Yeah, one of those big nasty ones.
So I got a lot of jokes out of that, but
yeah, that was pretty funny actually, because again, it's reminding us that we're following these guys and not our main crew,
Yeah, and it's still about them because it's all their views on these characters, and because the first time they're together, they talk about how great Sheridan is. Like, Sheridan's one of the people. He gets down in the trenches. He respects us. So we like Sheridan. We're not sure about the new captain. They debate about was she on the wrong side during the war.
Good to hear the rumors that go around. People seem to really like their job on Babylon 5, though. They seem all right.
Well, they like it when they're not in the brown sector, because they say that's all the new people get dumped in the brown sector.
New people. That makes sense.
that's funny, because we always joke about the brown sector, so it's just kind of nice that it works out like that. So they talk about that stuff. They run into Garibaldi arguing with Lockley because she blames Garibaldi for them being able to scan them. It's like, we should have that intel. Where's the intelligence? Covert or otherwise. So it's establishing some of the status quo.
Again, in an elevator. Elevators are where you have your fights.
For sure, yeah. And that's why we don't see scenes of Londo and Jakar in elevators, because now they're in this weird peaceful marriage place now. It'd
be weird.
Yeah. I actually did like their scene as well. Because it's when some of the enemy are boarding the station. So that everyone goes to these shelters. So Londo and Jakar are here with a bunch of other people. Our mechanics get there eventually. And basically, Jakar's quite calm because he's used to this, because back when the Narn world was attacked when he was a kid, this is what they would do a lot. They would spend days in shelters whilst the Centauri were bombing places. And, Londo's being his usual self until he says that, and then he kind of, he changes tactics and just sort of cracks a joke about his singing, because he says he used to sing when they were kids. And he makes a joke about the singing. I've got enough problems. Everyone's here scared enough without you singing. I love this subtle thing where obviously he's not going to just apologize again. He's done that already, and it would kind of bring the tone down. But the way he kind of like catches himself and sort of like, okay, I'm going to stop.
Well, we also get more background about Londo too, because Shakar's like, so what was it like for you when you were a kid? And he basically says, I wasn't a kid. I didn't have an opportunity to be a kid because I had to be the head of the family, be the man of the family at an early age. And so he didn't really have a childhood because of that. And Shakar says that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
that you never left your shelter. It stayed with you. And it's actually out of this moment where Londo is, cracking jokes about Shakar being in a shelter as a kid until he realizes he's in a shelter as a kid because, that's because my people were bombing his world. And that's, that's the genesis of our whole relationship. So he stops himself. And then Shakar questions him, finds this out. And he's the one who then kind of sympathizes with Londo and says, Like, that's kind of why you are the way you are, and you were never allowed to grow up in a way, and kind of, and then makes up a reason to, I'll go with you when he says he's going to leave, and it's like, this is oddly really sweet that Jakar's kind of looking out for him now and trying to like empathize with him.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, you still don't buy it. I'm totally in. I'm in.
I know. I don't want to keep making the same point over and over again, but I mean, why are they hanging out together? They don't have to hang out together all the time.
Because they are actually kind of becoming friends. That's the beauty of it.
It's wrong.
It's not wrong. This is the point. This is beautiful.
Look, I understand the conflict's over, and then they've both moved on, but you don't get to go back to being friends. It's not how this works.
Sure they can. That's the whole point, is that we have to move forward and be friends regardless of what the history is.
It's just like, say, okay, live your life on the other side of the station.
I love this. This is amazing. More of them together. I want them to be an odd couple all season. And to be honest, the jokes they're cracking right now implies that they are going to be an odd couple all season, and I love it.
Not into it.
Love it. Best thing about season 5. No? Okay.
You're trying to goad me, and I'm not going there.
I'm not trying to goad you.
You are.
I'm not going.
You're taking the extreme end here. I get it. I know what you're doing. We've done this for like 3 years now, man.
I'm trying to just counteract the negativity with a good dose of positivity, so the audience feels
represented,
happy. Yes, represented, happy.
I know I'm alone in this. I don't know why. I mean, if man caused genocide on your planet, you wouldn't be friends with him.
Look, Tara,
makes sense.
When it comes to Cole, I will pick up the sword and stand by your side. Okay?
Thank you. We will die together on this mountain.
But on this hill, I'm afraid we are separate into 2 hills. So no, I really like that scene with Lando Jakar. That was actually after, I think, the telepath scene, which was interesting because it was like kind of intimidating. They were kind of scared of them because this is a group of telepaths, so this is weird. But of course, Byron was also keeping them safe because like the masked like enemy like comes in at one point and like they just make him walk away because they all use their powers. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's pretty safe here. Like, I get you're creeped out because of telepaths, but that's pretty safe.
Yeah, the fighting is literally happening outside of their door, and they're just like, whatever, we're just reading our iPod, which is ahead of a person that died.
Well, this was actually quite interesting. They talk about how when someone dies, there's a kind of explosion of thought at the moment of death, which kind of lingers for a couple of minutes. And you could read that as when it disappears, that's when they've moved on to wherever someone moves on to. Or not, or it just fades away because, it was there and now it's gone. Like a smell.
Like when you turn the TV off, you can kind of see the image of the last thing.
Does that still happen? I thought that's an old thing with CRTs. I don't know if that still happens, does it?
Yeah. No, I don't think it happens anymore.
Yeah, it's an old TV thing, yeah. But if it's the era this was made in, so sure. Why not? But yeah, again, this was a neat little thing. I swear I was not expecting Byron to be as consistent a presence as he turns out he has been. He's been in more episodes than Lockley has at this point. But
I don't mind. I like him. I like the telepaths and their great hair. And their weird ability to send people on to think that they're on a ship or fighting in a fighter pilot.
Do you know what I think's interesting about this episode is that, we said that the Londo in his head episode was kind of like recapping things in a way without doing a clip show. I think this is actually a better version of that, where it's kind of like catching you up in a lot of the history between, just by having like these 2 characters talk about what they think of the various captains and characters and Garibaldi, Ivanova, whoever it may be. And obviously it has this extra purpose of like, by the end of the episode, Mac's willing to say, hey, Lockley, you're all right. Like, you're fine by me. And that makes her, half of me expected her to say, fine, weirdo, get back to work. But instead she's like, okay, thank you, that's sweet.
Well, maybe that's the first time someone said something like that to her, and she's not sure if she belongs on Babylon 5.
I think it's maybe this olive branch to the audience have been like, hey, maybe she's all right. Give her a chance. Like, these characters have learned it, so
far she has been pretty like button heads with our main cast.
Yeah, not done anything wrong though. She's very by the book and like harsh, but she's She's I actually really love the scene where she goes to tell Sheridan to leave for safety, and he's like, no, and she's like, you're the president, it's my job to protect you, and quite outright says, if you were the captain of this station still and you had to protect a political figure, what would you do? And he's like, exactly the same thing you are, but I'm still not going. Like, I love that she called him out in that, because she's right, he would.
Yeah, totally.
Because Garibaldi tried it in the past. We see it in Star Trek all the time. With Riker saying, no, Picard, the captain should not go in this mission. I know Kirk did it all the time, but that was just stupid. So
yeah, that was the 2260s.
So yeah, like that stuff. Obviously, eventually they pass by Delenn and Sheridan orders them. He's like, hey, you two, do you know where the escape pods are? Take Delenn, it's an order, and I'm not going with you. And then Delenn, on the way there with them, basically says, what would happen if I smashed up everything inside the escape pod? And he's like, you'd probably crash out of the planet or die or explode. Or it's like, well, that's what's going to happen if you put me on one, so therefore it's not safe, so you shouldn't, right? And like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
She does her Delenn charm and manipulation to stay on board the station.
Well, what's really sweet about this, the whole point of this episode in some ways, is that no one knows who they are, and the characters, pass them by, they're nice enough to them, but the sweet ending is that Delenn remembers their names, because she's the first one to actually ask their names. And at the end of the episode, when they pass them in the hall, she says, oh, hey Mac, hey Bo. And they are like, whoa, like, she remembers her name, or as Mac puts it, she remembered my name. It was like, our names, not just your name. I thought that was a really sweet ending, because Delenn would be the one to do it, because that's always been her character. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and also throughout the whole episode, they talk about her relationship with Sheridan, how it seems like it's real love, and then they witness a goodbye kiss that goes on maybe a little bit too long for them, but
not for you. Yeah, you too short for you. You're like, oh no, keep going, like
keep going.
Like, see
Let
how
me
long,
start the DVR.
How long can you hold your breath? Kissing challenge 2262. Go.
Nice. But yeah, and then they say, oh, you guys really love each other, and she smiles, and then they talk about how they would come back from the dead for her and stuff like that, and
not to her face. That part's private.
Yeah, they're just having their fanboy at a convention.
Yeah, it's a bit fanboy, I guess, in some respects. I mean, they already said how some of their comments feel like fan comments that have been, just put in there. Not in a mean way or anything. It all feels well-spirited enough. It's...
Oh, sure. It's more like I'm sort of making a joke because, like, Futurama does it a lot with Leela, when they talk about, like, fans wanting to, do things with Leela, even though she's a Cyclops cartoon.
Okay.
Look, I've been to fan conventions, all right? I know how they are there.
A lot of one-eye fan fiction, is there?
Maybe it's the purple hair.
Maybe.
It's probably the boobs.
Yeah. Or maybe just Katie Seagal's got a nice voice. I mean, it's just...
She does. Ow. Actually, quite a good singer, though.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I like Margaret Children. That's the main thing I know her from, is Margaret Children. She was in Lost as well, though. So I know her from that, too. As well as some Futurama. So
Futurama's awesome.
Yeah.
But I would go to like fan conventions or even just like Comic-Con in San Diego when I would go there. And every time there was like a hot actress on the stage and the questions would come up, there would always be someone, why are you so hot? It was so embarrassing. Which is so...
That's cringeworthy.
I can't believe people, like celebrities even went. Like they must have been forced. Because the fan questions were so awful.
Yeah, it's either part of their PR tour, which they're being paid for already, or they're paid specifically to go. Because, well, part of it is they make a lot of money from autographs and shit. Like, they make a fortune from selling stuff.
Yeah, well, not the big ones. They don't do that. Like, probably like, like the Star Trek actors, sure, but not the San Diego Comic-Con is like Charlize Theron and stuff like that.
The Star Trek actors...
She doesn't stick around.
Like, Star Trek actors are the prime example of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Making a fortune with their headshot. Like, I'll sign it for you, yes.
Yeah, I own a couple.
Of course you do.
I got a... DeForest Kelly. God, I can't remember his name for a second. DeForest Kelly, and I got Nichelle Nichols.
Oh, that's cool. I was expecting an original series. That means you did it a while ago.
Yeah, when I was very young.
Yeah, and another thing I like, just to get back to the episode, is it's actually before they get to the telepath bit, they end up in a bit of a war zone moment where the aliens are coming in and shooting at everyone, and Zach's like leading the charge with security.
That's right.
Yeah, so even Zach gets
Our
a
boy
nice
Zach.
heroic moment in the episode. And he's like, "What are you guys doing here?" Because they're hiding behind like a box. Like, he's like, "Oh shit, we're not fighters." Like,
yeah, they just came out of their elevator because it got stuck.
Yeah. So Zach's like, "I'll cover you. Go, go, go." And it's like, so, okay, that's kind of fun.
When they said, "I hope we don't get stuck," like, I hope our elevator didn't stop like between decks or something, so they can get out safely. And I was like, "Oh, I wonder if they're in Grey 17."
Yeah, there you go. That's a reference. Yeah,
but they're in the brownstone because they end up with telepaths.
Yeah, I also really like their conversation about it's our ship that get killed when it's like a red flash versus a green flash. I think maybe I got the colors wrong, but
no, that's right, because of the oxygen. They said.
Yeah, it was red. But whatever the other ships are using for their atmosphere, whatever this other alien race breathes, like it's resulting in a green explosion. And so it's like they're saying, "Oh, it's quite pretty, all these green flashes," but then there's a red one, and they get a little bit like, "Oh, that's a bit sadder actually." But and that's sort of amplified at the end when they're like, because they're kind of like joking about what's happened, and they're saying, "Oh, we did all this work, we keep fixing things, we get none of the credit." They're all out there getting the glory, and then they'll turn around the corner, and it's just rows of dead bodies, and Franklin's just like confirming deaths. And I actually thought that was a really effective little scene that kind of really emphasized like, okay, that's sort of humbled them a little bit, and it's not that they were being too distasteful or anything, but it's kind of put in perspective like, oh, okay.
Well, they call themselves the cleanup crew after everybody else is done. They have to go out there. And I like this bit, too, where they actually have to go out and collect all the debris because otherwise it's just going to,
stay there,
stick around. You don't want to have dead floaty bits, all around your system. And so people are trying to enjoy their meal, look outside, and it's just an arm or something.
it comes back to... with their conversation where they're talking about, the pilots don't usually acknowledge them and treat them like shit, but they met one nice one. This moment here is they're like, okay, you know what? They're out there dying for us, and we're complaining about cleaning up after the fact. And it's selling the idea that they're just as important as the pilots are. Like, everyone's an important part of the chain. Like, every part of it. Like, if they're not there to take the bugs out of the defense grid wiring, then the defense grid's down and then everyone dies. Like, it's just as important. It just doesn't seem as, it's not as spectacular sounding.
It's not as flashy.
Yeah. So I thought this was a really humbling kind of moment with Franklin before you get the joke ending.
I think that's why also Byron puts him in the place of a pilot, so he can
of
he
course,
thinks that's the real job out there, that's the one I want to be. And when he's in it, he's like, actually this seems more dangerous, maybe I'll go back to just fixing atmospheric machines or whatever he's doing for Franklin.
I like when he thinks about it again later and you see it again. He says, "Yeah, sometimes I still like to think that I'd want it, but then sometimes I don't." And it's not this clear cut thing of because he's so sure of it when he first says it. When Byron decides to sort of, I don't want to say teach him a lesson per se, but he's like, "Oh well, I'll show you what it feels like. I'll give you a taste of it." You're right. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up actually, because I've forgotten to mention that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's almost like you said you're Malcolm there. I'm not Malcolm.
Nope.
I'm Peter.
Yes.
So thank you. No one I'd rather be. So that's not true. That's like a list of people I'd rather be. But
yeah, there's some I picked too.
Yeah, so no, I thought it was a pretty solid episode. It might even be my favorite of the. I liked last week's episode too. I think 3 and 4 were better than 1 and 2. 2 being the low point of the season, but don't get me wrong. Does this live up to stuff from the last couple of seasons where all this stuff was paying off? No, it doesn't. It's not as good as that. But I thought this was a really good little standalone episode, and we barely even mentioned what the actual threat was. It was basically this alien race that tried to pick off weak civilizations and outposts and planets, and they're basically scouting to see if B5 is a good target. And obviously by the end, clearly not, because they all get destroyed and we win. So, but
yeah, we don't. We see the aliens' armor and stuff, but we don't really get a good look at them. So I don't know if this is the setup for a new alien species out there that we're going to see again, or
they might tie it into something later. But I could totally buy this as just a one-time thing. That's just all it is.
It seemed pretty clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The armor was, it was neat. It felt like they'd sort of repurposed like some samurai armor or something.
It looked a little bit like the not the Inquisitors, the like the Imperial Guard from Star Wars, the ones that are around the red ones.
Yeah,
kind of like that.
Yeah, it definitely had a vibe of like they took another outfit and kind of like added some bits to it, to change it to red or whatever to give it a different look. It looked alright though. I didn't have problems with it.
Yeah, it was fine. Interesting type of species. Just goes out, tries to find weak species out there and take advantage of them.
The only real critiques I would have is that a couple of the moments where Mac and Bo become a bit reflective and start like sort of getting really, they start like theorizing and philosophizing about like what their life is. I was like, okay, this is maybe a little on the nose at times, but other than that, like I really enjoyed like their little trip through the station and just getting and I thought it did a lot of good little things for all the other characters, especially Franklin's story was great, and just sort of setting up the stakes of everything that happens at the station is kind of cool. So
I agree.
So good stuff. I enjoyed this one. So that's a view from the gallery. So by all means, let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. You can like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. You can obviously hit the super thanks button to donate one time, or you can support us on a more consistent basis somewhere else. Can they, Tara?
That's right, Malcolm. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV, where if you donate as low as $1 per month, you'll get access to bonus reviews for movies that we review, science fiction movies to be exact. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get access to these Babylon 5 reviews 6 days early. And you also get to vote on what movies we watch once a month over on our movie channel, Mild Fuzz Movies. So if that interests you, please head on over and check that out. Thank you.
And there you go. That is the show. That is the episode for the week. Thank you once again for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Babylon 5. Just don't give away the home world.